The market has seemed to hit a local bottom. The bearish trade, like we pointed out last week, was completely overcrowded. All the smart people, quote unquote, on crypto Twitter and YouTube were starting to just get too bearish at this point. And now we're seeing the market bounce quite nicely. 5.5% gain on Bitcoin over the last week, sitting at 88K today. It seems like the market is reacting less to any given news or any given tariff announcement from Trump. So in this video, I'm going to go over, is this run going to last? Have we seen the bottom, quote unquote? And of course, what altcoins do I like during this time period as the market is rallying? And we saw literal cycle lows on a lot of different altcoins. Which altcoins do I think have the best chance for a very explosive bounce during this time period? I'll go over that in this video. So let's jump into it. Without further ado, like the video and subscribe to the channel down below for more every single day and every week here on In the Game. We have you covered from gaming, AI, RWA, meme coins, anything in the market, we've got you covered on the alpha as well. A big shout out to our sponsors here on In the Game. We have our amazing partners, Medieval Empires, we have Ledger, we have Cradle Games, we have Funtico as well. You can check out all of our exchange partners down below. This has definitely been a trader's market. A lot of people think there's a short squeeze going on right now, so a lot of people were short in the market. So if you are looking to long or short the markets, I would absolutely recommend Blowfin down below in the description. I think Blowfin is by far the #1 centralized exchange. No KYC, easy in, easy withdrawals every single time. They have been reliable, so you can check out Blowfin down below. Let's dive into it, guys. And I have to start the show with a nice GM. I hope you hit your morning routines this morning. Obviously, this has been the mega meme on Twitter this week. I hope you have your Saratoga water bottles and your face ice bath ready to go, because this market is definitely, treating us well today. We see 88K Bitcoin, and of course, a lot of altcoins bouncing at the same time. We see stuff like Carrot up 34%, Pirate Nation up 23% on the daily, even FWOG bouncing up 25% on the daily. We have MOG up 16%, Superverse up 15% on the daily. And then on the weekly charts, we're seeing stuff like Pirate up 68%, Beam up 36%. So we'll talk about these in just a second. And of course, why this is happening. And I think that, there's multiple answers, some being quite obvious. But then if you just look at the trends, which we pointed out on last week's video, I think this was some of the easiest plays to be able to catch some of these alts at cycle lows. So bears are obviously quiet today. Like I said, the bearish trade has been overcrowded. I think too many people, the sentiment shifts way too fast in crypto. So in this video, you're not going to catch me. I'm not going to say the bull run's back activated, like we're up only from here, because I genuinely don't think that. But at the same time, I think the bearish trade was way too crowded. I think they're squeezing out a lot of shorts at this point in time. And one thing in crypto is you have to react on a long-term, basis, but at the same time, see the short-term trends. We obviously said that buy the rumor, sell the news event around the crypto summit was a thing, and that actually played out. We saw a sell the news event from there, but then we tweeted last week, and on this, very channel, we talked about how I felt like the bottom was in locally, as too many people were incredibly bearish. And of course, when everyone's euphoric, typically would be a good time to take some money out of the market. And when everyone's just incredibly bearish, like we just saw, it is typically a great time to stick a little bit of stable coins in some altcoins that look like they're at a cycle low, which they definitely were. And I agree with this take here. And this is why you have to be positioned in the market. And I talk about it all the time. Time in the market is going to beat timing the market 10 out of 10 times. Generally think if Trump keeps crashing the US economy, nothing is safe. Crypto stocks are going to continue to plummet if that was the case. There's the theory out there that Trump is tanking the economy in order to get rates down. And then we go into a more risk-on environment. We go into QE instead of QT. So as we see here, if somehow fails to crash the economy and the markets rebound, crypto is one of the better bets given the recent government support. Therefore, I have enough cash to buy a crash, but enough crypto in case it doesn't. So, and that's the thing. You have to play both sides of the coin at all times. Nobody in this market is a magician. Not me, not any KOL you see on YouTube or Twitter. We're all market participants at the end of the day. And, I don't know if the market's going to go down or up on any given day, but I can definitely tell you that this market is the most unpredictable on planet Earth. There are obvious time periods like recently, I think, and I'll show some of these charts on why I think that it was a no-brainer to buy some altcoins at these levels. But at the same time, you have to play both circumstances. If the market runs without you, is that going to be more painful than being completely sidelined? Or you're completely sidelined, and if the market runs without you, that's going to be way more painful than leaving a little cash on the side but having exposure into crypto so you catch that upside. You're not really having that psychological thing of, wow, did I just miss the bottom? I have exposure to crypto plenty. So in this circumstance, I'm not like, oh, I think I missed the bottom. I had exposure the whole way through. So that's, I think, how you have to play it. You have to see all circumstances as on the table. And like I had mentioned here, and Beam aside, I will use Beam as the example chart here because it is a great example whenever it comes to the the cycle lows that I've been talking about. But as we see here, Beam was recently at its lowest price since it rebranded from Merit Circle to Beam. A bounce was inevitable. And if we look at the chart here, literally this time period, 0.005, is the lowest it has been since October 30th, 2023. This is literally the day that they relaunched from Merit Circle into Beam. So if you are a Beam bull over the time period, and I love Beam, it's still one of the top positions in my gaming portfolio. I have crazy conviction in that Beam is going to be one of the leaders in the gaming sector whenever this does pop off. But you're seeing a cycle low. This coin launched at this price technically when they rebranded the liquidity from Merit Circle over to Beam. How would you not imagine that this price here was a good buy on March 10th? You were seeing a low we hadn't seen in a year and a half since they completely moved over to this token. Its all-time low was 0.004, and we got to 0.005. I think you have to just take a look at these things and understand that that is the time where you take some nibbles. And as we mentioned, you put a little bit of stables into these coins whenever you see these opportunities. And like we said, Super around 40 cents. Now Super's trading at 52 cents. We see stuff like Echelon Prime still trading above $4. I think Prime is still a great accumulation at this point in time. But my general thesis, I think short term, we see a relief. I think this will continue over the course of a week or a few days to a couple of weeks. I think that could be the timeline here, that we continue to see a bounce in this market. I do think, as always, and I'll just bring up Bitcoin as an example. If we take a look at the 1-year Bitcoin chart, we see a stark rise in the market here, from May 1st all the way up to 71K on June 5th of 2024. But what happens during the summer? It's the old adage that the traders, the quants, the big money, Wall Street, the institutions, they go to their beach houses in the Hamptons or whatever the case is, and they party in the Hamptons all summer. And as we see here, we saw nothing but chop over the summertime last year. It was nothing but down from 71K here all the way down to 55. And then by August, 54. By September, we were down again at 53. So you see, the summertime is usually actually a choppy time period in crypto. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a relief leading into the summertime. So maybe, a couple of weeks to a month of a relief rally here, especially if the market isn't reacting to the tariffs just like they were previously, like a few weeks ago when the market was tanking every single time Trump mentioned tariffs. And then we probably see a late Q3, Q4 pump, and that's where we see the altcoin cycle and the bull run really kick back into effect, just like we saw at the latter end of last year heading into the election as well as Trump's inauguration. So there's a lot of factors here. I think we do pump maybe over the next couple weeks to couple months heading into the summer, and then we probably see some summertime chop. So let's go ahead and take a look across the market, some news going on out there, because I think it's important to highlight some of the developments going on, and then we'll talk about coins that I think haven't really seen too much of a bounce yet that I would still be potentially putting a percentage of my stable coins into. Number one would be Avalanche. And we mentioned this last week at $18. It's now up 16% on the week and 10% on the daily, sitting at $21.52. But Avalanche, this is the L1 that doesn't get as much publicity as something like a Solana or something like that. But at the end of the day, you look at the proof is in the pudding, right? We see Gunzilla, the Avalanche L1 with the highest transaction count, 2.5 million transactions here. And that is just over a short-term time period. It's on a daily time period. We see here stuff like Beam, PlayDAP, DFK, 𝗥 Pulsar. So they're getting so much activity from these top applications. And at the end of the day, a bet on Avalanche, you're betting on a broader L1 ecosystem. So it's a very safe play, but you also have exposure to the biggest game in Web3 gaming. And I do think that once Off the Grid goes to mainnet, and look, it's been a long time coming. I have said this probably 100 times at this point in time, but Off the Grid mainnet and token launch will catapult the gaming space. I will die on that hill that this will be the catalyst, because people are already trading assets over the counter for $700, $300. Imagine when the marketplace is with real money. People are trading these assets. More people are going to want to jump in the game, trade their skins, just like CSGO skins. And at the beginning of this industry, I got into this because I realized the power. I've spent so much money in Call of Duty Warzone on battle passes, pointless skins, and these things got me zero ROI. So, I was trapped with $0 of value in thousands of dollars of purchases. So Off the Grid and other, Web3 enabled games flip the script on this. And Off the Grid is already proving to be one of the games that you grab these assets, you're able to flip them over the counter even. So whenever this marketplace does kick in, I think that Off the Grid is a crazy catalyst for the gaming space. But nonetheless, I think transactions kick up. I think more people participate. I think player counts go up, and you're betting on Avalanche. They're utilizing Avalanche's technology, and especially for the fact that most people won't be able to get their hands on the Gunzilla token because they haven't really had token pre-sales. The node sale was very exclusive. I would have exposure to Avalanche in that circumstance. So definitely Avalanche is still number one on my DCA list. Number two at these current prices, and I'm surprised not to see it rebounding harder, is Echelon Prime. So obviously Prime, the biggest catalyst currently is Wayfinder. I also saw a comment on last video about the Parallel Colony game. It does seem that the demo or the early access has been delayed to early Q2. They were eyeing up Q1, but at the same time, gaming does take a while, and they're developing an AI side of gaming. So I think you have to cut them a little slack there. But the Parallel Colony demo / early access should be live early Q2. But Wayfinder is free money. As you can see here, Zenika's tweet, you can literally activate your agent, complete the missions, and earn 2% allocation for testers just for supporting the community and trying out the product. Costs almost nothing. You can go in there, complete some tasks, fund the wallet, and then also the big catalyst here is you can own and stake your Prime to be able to get an allocation. 40% of the supply is up for grabs here for Wayfinder prompt token. So to me, this is a multi-pronged play, and I think this will bounce over the course of this week, especially if we see a continuation in the overarching market. And regardless, I think $4 is a crazy DCA level here for something like Echelon Prime. Moving on down the ladder here, I'm going to go with Zentry. Zentry, as mentioned on Friday's show, they have, their last 6 months have been very, very bullish. They have bridged over to Ronin. They brought their big IP game, Ragnarok, over to the Ronin network. It has a really, really solid player base, good on-chain metrics. They have their Nexus platform, not my Nexus platform that I'm using here, but a SocialFi platform, which speculation is you're probably going to get an airdrop in the Zentry token eventually. And they just announced today that, as you see here, it's kind of I will say, I don't like when projects do this or people on Twitter do this, but whatever. But ZM Meta Madness starts on 3/26. So some sort of an event based off of March Madness begins on Wednesday. I'm excited to see exactly what the details are behind this. So we have this catalyst coming up right around the corner for Zentry. And overall, I just think this market cap is dirt cheap at 83 million, as we see here. I mean, that's just circulating, and the diluted's only 122, smaller than a lot of gaming projects fully diluted, as well as just their circulating market cap being under 100 mil. I think that that is way too cheap at this point in time to be able to get exposure into a top gaming ecosystem in the entire space. I had mentioned last week, I do still love 𝗏. If I can find 𝗏 here. In 𝗏 only up 7% over the last week. I think that as far as AI coins, people are still so bullish on AI, robotics, whatever the case is. And I think 𝗏 is the perfect coin that gives you AI exposure without having crazy downside risk that some of these smaller cap AI tokens have. So far, Avalanche, 𝗏, as well as Zentree. And if I'm moving down the ladder just a little bit, I might nibble on Wilder World here at 68 million. I think that's a pretty good price point. I like Altura here at 4 cents. Our bear market entry was 2.5 cents. So I think you have to take into account, like, we haven't seen these low of prices for some of these altcoins in quite some time. And I think overall, there's still great exposure in the market. Stuff like 𝗪𝗏𝗡. I still think Super, Prime, if you run down the ladder, Avalanche, Beam, a lot of these prices are dirt cheap. It's really up to your risk tolerance. It's also up to the fact of what do you have in your portfolio. And if you follow this channel, you're probably bullish on gaming. You're probably bullish on AI, overarching L1s. So you may have exposure into Beam, Super, Prime. Maybe you're looking for something like a Ronin, which I do think is at a very good price as well. So as far as gaming goes, and it's been a rough time, I won't lie. The gaming space has been unforgiving as far as altcoins over the last year. We haven't had an altcoin gaming run for 13 months. But at the same time, if there's a time to bet on it, it would be right now. There's a lot of good developments going on in the gaming space, and especially when off the grid, as mentioned, goes into mainnet. I think that this catapults the gaming space, and you're getting some of these coins at literal cycle lows. So I think that's an opportunity that you don't see very often. So those are some of the coins that I would definitely look at for DCAs. And then if you are out there, maybe you don't have too much liquidity, or you have a little bit of liquidity to go play around with. Number one, go look at Abstract Chain. Just make some trades, earn some XP. The Abstract airdrop, I think, will be fruitful for those who earn enough XP. So go play around on testnets, on stuff like Monad. Go play around with the mainnet on Abstract. Also, we have Gomble Games, 1 week to go on their current launch pool number 3. They have increased rewards for daily wallet check-ins, so gather your squad. Launchpad number 3 still has a week to go. And also, if you have some liquidity to go play around with, if you lock up some TVL into SOFON, which is also tied into Beam's ecosystem, you can probably earn an allocation into the upcoming SOFON token. So there's plenty to do for people who want to have exposure into the market, but also on top of that, who want to farm upcoming protocols. There's plenty of opportunities across the board. And, quite frankly speaking, I think that we see a continuation on this. I'd be happy to be wrong, but I do think, the short squeeze was real. I do think there was too many bears on the timeline. And now the market is exhausted from this news. Like, it's just not reacting as much to Trump. Literally this morning or last night said a new tariff coming on Venezuela or something like that. And the market just did not care, right? And we still see a lot of dry powder left for entities like MicroStrategy to buy the dip. And recently they bought the dip and they finally weren't a top signal. So I think that's also very bullish at this point in time. So a lot of good stuff happening in the crypto space. Obviously, regulatory, institutional support. But on top of that, I just think we were oversold. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Which altcoins are you buying? Because obviously, I have my exposure. I love my entries across the board. And let me know what you have been looking at, what you've been buying in this market. I'd love to know what gaming, AI, RWA, L1s that you have your eye on as well. And we'll have you covered throughout the week as we see this uptrend hopefully continue to unfold. So guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel down below, and I'll see y'all on the next one. As always, play well, my friends. And of course, stay bullish, my friends.